Hey, Inner Circle members, Charles Lewis here. Welcome to this event. We're going to talk about marketing today. And marketing is fun. It really is fun. When it works, it's a lot of fun and earns you a great living. And joining me today is my son and business partner, Mr. Todd Lewis. Hi, Todd.
Hello, everyone. This is the lifeblood of your business, or in this case, as our slides show, it's going to be kind of the blueprint for your business. If you aren't doing the right things marketing wise, you want to learn how to compete and you want to learn the things in marketing that will never change, the things that will always be working in marketing your photography business because they're based in human psychology, this is the place to be.
Yes, and also joining us today from the great state of Maine, Mr. Thomas Morelli. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Chuck. Hello, Todd. Hello, everyone. I can tell you what you're going to see today. I've been in business 45 years full time. This is, and we've done this a long time. We've taught together for many years. I don't think you've put together a program that has more comprehensive coverage, A to Z of everything one would need to know to market a photography business. It's really extensive. So get your notepads out, get your thinking cap on. You're going to love this.
Oh, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, for sure. So the goal of today's event is to give you the blueprint for creating effective and profitable marketing for your photography business. Effective and profitable marketing is not something that happens by chance. It's not something that happens magically. It happens through targeted, concise action. And today we're going to give you the blueprint, regardless of what medium you're using. So, whether you're focusing primarily on online marketing, your website, your social media, stuff like that. If you're doing print work like brochures or sales letters, things like that, all of those things, this is going to work because all of these go across every medium. And that's why we kind of chose this as our subject for today. So that's our goal for today, and darn it, we will meet it. What we're going to cover today, first of all, the main types of photographic marketing, the vital parts of photographic marketing, headlines that sell. I love that. Headlines are vital in every marketing piece that you do, no matter what medium you're on. The power of the double readership path, plus samples of what a double readership path is and what it looks like and why it's so powerful. How to craft the body copy for your marketing, testimonials, your guarantee and its place in marketing, crafting offers that bring in clients like crazy, multiple means of response, cosmetics of marketing, and the step-by-step checklist, and much, much more. I don't know, guys. I know we bit off an awful lot here, but Tom, how do you feel about all the stuff very quickly that we're going to be covering today?
I know all this. Yes, I do. I've used this in my business. I wouldn't be around if you're not looking at this. We all went into business thinking, wow, I'm a great photographer. They're going to line up at my door. Doesn't happen that way. What you're going to hear today is the reason they would line up your door, and also with qualified clients. That's what we're going to find out about.
Qualified clients, that's key. Dad, anything you want to say about this incredible list of stuff we're going to cover today?
Yeah, it just reminds me of the first car ride I took with the great Donald Jack when I was apprenticing with him, and we're heading out for a wedding. And he said, "So you're going to be a photographer, huh?" And I said, "Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm really excited. I'm going to do it." And he said, "Well, how are people going to know you exist?" And I said, because I'm going to be good. I'm going to be really good. And they're going to tell all their friends and they're going to line up at my door, like Tom said. And he said, "You need work, my friend. You need work." And I had no idea how stupid I sounded when I told him that I'll never forget it because it was kind of embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, hey, you learned the stuff that we're going to be covering today. You've implemented it every day of your existence in your photography business, as does Tom and as have I. So let's dive in with our first main subject here, the main types of photographic marketing, or like I like to call them, the building blocks of your business. So these are the kind of types of marketing that you can do in your photography business. And this is only some of them, but these are kind of the main ones. First of all, we got brochures, any form of brochures. This can be, millions of different things, millions of different permutations, but print brochures. Next are postcards or lift cards. Next up are special reports, both online and offline, sales letters, online and offline, endorsed mailings, emails, personal emails that are kind of one-on-one to a human being, or what are called kind of email blasts, where they're kind of going out to, hundreds or possibly thousands of people at once. Newsletters, both in PDF form or online form, or even sometimes through like WordPress and things like that, but also print newsletters still work extraordinarily well. Don't underestimate that. PDF files of various things, including like the newsletters, as we spoke about there. Your website, another huge thing. Can't deny the importance of having a very powerful photographic website. Social media, of course, the big elephant in the room. Everyone wonders how to utilize social media, and the same things that work in other mediums that we're going to talk about today will work in social media. Exhibits and displays are a big one. Exhibiting your work throughout the community. And we're going to talk a bit about that today, but not much. So we might come back to that on this slide because we have other programs that we've done that are specifically about that. But there are going to be aspects of what we're going to cover today that are going to go into your exhibits and displays as well. Speaking for groups is another big one. So Tom will probably be able to talk a little bit about that here in a second. I might have him just talk for a moment, but we have other programs that are available on the specifics of that as well. Pay-per-click for Facebook and Google. Also going to use most of what we cover here today. Radio and television. We'll get to that here in a second. So we're going to come back and visit some of these. But be sure to have multiple legs to your marketing table. That's what's so important here. So very quickly, I'm just going to go down this list and just highlight a couple of things and throw them to Tom and or my dad here. Brochures and postcards, lift cards, those things, everything we're going to cover today, headlines, double readership paths, all that stuff are going to apply very much to those. So I'm going to skip past those. Special reports, you're going to see examples of what we mean by a special report, especially when we get to the double readership path conversation. Those are things that aren't as much brochure. They're not glossy, all, primarily photographs and testimonials. They're words that are designed to build the relationship and the rapport, and you'll see how all that stuff applies to that. So are sales letters. Sales letters can also be kind of similar to special reports, depending on how those are done. But endorsed mailings. So I want to talk about that for a second. So what an endorsed mailing is it's a mailing that comes from somebody else. It's not coming from you, the photographer. It's coming from a strategic partner that you're working with in your community, somebody who you have a relationship with, a business in your community, for example, a veterinarian's hospital, a dental office, maybe even a hospital, a maternity ward of a hospital, pediatricians, things like that. Those are really key areas for endorsed mailings. Dad, can you think of any others that could be good strategic partners for people to do endorsed mailings with?
Yeah, anybody who owns their own business and has clients, and they have a list of those clients, like when they send them a bill or anything like that, those people will work out really well because they want to have help with their marketing, and you're going to show them how, and they will work with you, and they have the list with the address so they can snail mail as well as email. Anybody like that. So you think through the people you have worked with in the past for photography, and there's probably several people in there that qualify that you could go to right away and talk about that.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So yeah, then what you're doing is you're going to craft this endorsed mailing that is from them, but you wrote it. So you're taking all the work yourself and having that sent out. And everything we're going to talk about today is going to apply to those endorsed mailings as well. Emails are pretty straightforward. Newsletters are straightforward, although do keep in mind that your newsletters need to build a rapport, build emotion, build a connection with your clients. And they do have to have a call to action in them, getting them to take the next step toward working with you. So a newsletter can't just be information. It has to go well beyond that and do all the things we're going to talk about today. Same with PDFs, same thing with your website. Social media is kind of a unique thing in itself. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Exhibits and displays, I did want to talk about for just a moment. The power of exhibits and displays. This should be your number one marketing approach. I mean, every photographer should be making this their number one. And we're talking free exhibits and displays here, not exhibits that you have to pay for to be in that location. These are exhibits and displays that are free. You're doing them in locations that your target market frequents, but then you're going to use lift cards, which are the number two on the list on your screen here. Those we will talk about. The stuff with headlines, testimonials, and stuff like that will apply to those lift cards, which someone can take off of or lift off of your exhibit, take home, and gets them to take that next step toward working with them. Tom, very, very quickly, please, how important have exhibits been for you in your photography business?
I would not be here without them, and they have multiple benefits. Often when we were putting these up in the various businesses, children's clothing stores, nice restaurants, all the places our target market shops and hangs out, as I was putting the displays up, or we often would change them once a month, people would come up and go, "Oh, you're the one that does these are beautiful." I'd give them a lift card, which has all the elements we're going to talk about today on it. Often I would get back to my studio, there would be phone calls saying, "Hey, I just met you. We wanted to set up a time to come meet." So they are that powerful because they meet a person. You know, a lot of times people say, how do people invest in portraits as they do? Build rapport and trust. That's a big part of it. The displays also give you legitimacy because they're in a business that they know and trust while they're dining there or shopping there, and they look on the walls and they assume the business knows and trusts you as well. So there's multiple layers of benefits to displays.
Okay, and I want to turn it over to you too, Tom. Like 30 to 45 seconds. Speaking for groups, what do we mean by that, and how important has that been for your business?
You know, any Rotary, Kiwanis, business women's groups, there's all kinds of groups in my area. You can contact your local Chamber of Commerce. They've got a whole list. They always have different chair people. One chair people, and I've been in groups like the Lions Club, they have speakers. Every week they have maybe a Wednesday noontime lunch meeting or sometimes a supper meeting. And they're always looking for someone to speak for maybe 20 minutes, not a big deal. But you can come in with a headline like top 10 ways to take better photographs of your children at home, whatever it is. Come in and let them see your personality. There's displays of your work. I never did it as a hardcore selling, but I also would say, you know, the top 5 people to throw me their business card today, I'm going to give 50% off. There's all kinds of ways to work it.
Right.
But the idea is you're out in the public, people see you, they meet you. People often ask about brands. You are your brand. Getting out in front of these professional movers and shakers is no better way to build your brand than that.
Yep. Thank you, Tom. We could spend an entire event on that. I just gave Tom an impossible task to try to outline it very, very quickly. But last one I want to talk about is radio and television. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your energy. The amount of money that you would put into a radio or a television ad, you could put into so many other things that will be much more effective for you. Dad, literally less than 30 seconds. Agree or disagree with that?
I agree completely.
Yeah, because you tried it.
Yep.
And it cost a lot of money and didn't do as great as we would have liked it to do, for sure.
Nope.
So, all right, let's talk about the vital parts of nearly any marketing campaign for a photographer. All right, so let's start with the salutation. So the salutation is basically how you start out that marketing campaign. Now, not all marketing campaigns need an official kind of the traditional salutation, which would kind of be, you know, dear Mr. Smith, you know, dear, I don't want to say dear John, because that that brings up very negative connotations for an awful lot of people. It wouldn't be a dear John letter, but that's kind of what we typically mean by a salutation. So anytime you're doing like a sales letter or something like that, that kind of a promotion, it would be great to have a salutation that is customized to them. But other times that you can do some cool salutations are in the mail. If you're doing something in the mail where you're customizing that piece for them, and maybe on, you know, the envelope is customized, and when they open it up, there's handwriting on the particular marketing piece that you have in there that uses their name and stuff like that. Can be very, very powerful, much more powerful than television or radio advertising. It is a little more costly, than doing stuff online. But believe me, so few people are doing this now because they're just wanting to focus solely on marketing online, that people will really pay attention to this and it'll make you stand out. So that's kind of what we mean by a salutation. You don't use the traditional salutation all that much, but you will use something else in a moment here that kind of takes the place of the salutation, and that is this, the headline. The headline is something that should be in every marketing piece that you do. What we mean by a headline is, you know, the large copy at the top of the page, the top of the screen, the top of whatever marketing piece it is that you're doing, that kind of encapsulates why they should pay attention to what you're saying here. It has to build rapport, build a relationship. It's got to show that it appeals to them, and it's got to get them, above all else, to want to read the rest of that marketing campaign, whatever medium it is in. We're going to show some great examples of headlines in a moment here, so we don't have to spend a lot of time on that here, but we spend a lot of time crafting the marketing or the headline for a marketing campaign. Oftentimes I will spend between 30 and 50% of the amount of time that I spent on the rest of the marketing campaign alone in crafting a really powerful headline, because if that doesn't work, they'll never read the rest of your marketing at all. A double readership path. A double readership path is what we refer to as, some people will get your marketing. They'll have it come up in front of them on their computer screen. They'll get it out of your mailbox, their mailbox, whatever it is, and they will read every word of it. They'll read that headline, it pulls them in, and they just go through and they read every word of it. But other people are what we call skimmers. Oh, well, this sounds interesting. What's it all about? And they will look for the things that pop out of the page or pop off the screen to them, and they'll read those and see, is this of interest to me? And those are what we call subheads or subheadlines. And a double readership path is made up of subheadlines. We're going to talk about that and show you examples of that in a little bit, so we don't have to stay on that too long. Dad, I'm going to throw this one to you, the importance of emotional body copy. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later, but why don't you go ahead and take that one?
Well, my target market are the warm fuzzies in the world, people who are emotionally right brain dominant, cry at movies, cry at the end of a book. So in order to appeal to them, it's great by talking emotionally to them in whatever medium you're using, because people invest in photography for emotional reasons. So you have to always use emotion in your marketing. Very important.
Sure is, absolutely. As are testimonials, because testimonials are emotion from someone other than you. They're emotion coming from clients with whom you've worked. Now, everyone, I assume you all know what a testimonial means, but it's something crafted by somebody you've worked with that are saying, oh, we love these portraits so much. They mean so much to us. We loved working with Tom Morelli, and he went above and beyond, you know, stuff like that. But the key is that testimonials are infinitely more powerful than anything you can say about yourself. And it does a very important thing for local photographers, because again, your business is very locally specific. You're not trying to appeal to the entire globe. Well, then when people see people in their own community that are saying these wonderful things about you, it gives this sense of community involvement, of community trust, and people will be much more likely to work with you. We'll probably show some testimonials in a little bit, but you want to make sure to give the city and state and full name of the person that gives the testimonial so that people can see that they indeed live in, you know, your area, or that the testimonial people live in their area, and it gives that credibility. Unique factors. Unique factors are what set you apart from the other photographers in the area. Tom, do you want to talk just very quickly about the importance of unique factors and maybe what one or two of yours may be?
You've probably heard of the term elevator pitch. This is kind of like that, where if you had 30 seconds with someone and they asked about your business, you should have 3 or 4 of these to roll off your tongue easily, such as, I never photograph anyone in my photography studio without meeting first before we set up any photography. So I get to know you, everybody in your family, and explain the benefits to the prospect at that time of what meeting with them means. I'll also come to your house and do what we call a go-see. I take a look at where we might do the photography. We'll look at some clothing. We'll look around your home. And that personal touch is going to make a huge difference in your portraits, because we guarantee you'll be thrilled with these or you don't pay me.
Yeah, that's great. And again, unique factors are the things that set you apart from most, if not all, of the other photographers in your area. It gives them additional reasons beyond just the quality of your photography to have you become their photographer rather than someone else. Killer offer. You got to have a killer offer. Now, what we mean by that is you don't have to give away the farm here. We're not talking about you get $900,000 worth of photographs for $99. No one would believe that. No one would take you up on that. Absolutely. But we are talking about making an offer because guess what? Even the richest of people, they like to save money. Everybody likes to save money when they can if they believe that they are not going to be sacrificing quality. That's the important thing. So when you show your incredible work, you build that incredible rapport with them in your marketing, then when you make this incredible offer, they're going to go, oh my gosh, I've got to reach out. Tom Morelli has a great baby plan, which is a wonderful example of that. We don't have time to talk about that here, but his killer offer in his baby plan is amazing. And what they get for that in the lifetime enjoyment of what they're going to take away from that is nearly priceless. So that's great.
And that is on the online vault. So you go to the online vault, you log in with your username and password, type in baby plan in the search bar, and it'll pull everything up on Tom's fantastic baby plan.
Right. Next up is the call to action. You got to have a call to action. I see photographers miss this all the time. Remember, any message that you put out there is a marketing message. Any message you put out there on Facebook, especially on your business page, but I mean, even your personal page, because some people will be seeing that could be clients. Make no mistake, you are marketing yourself all the time with that. So nearly, I don't want to say nearly every, I would say 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 6 messages that you're putting out there on social media for your business should have a very specific call to action in it. Not all of them. Some of them you're just building rapport, you're just connecting, stuff like that. But 1 out of every 5 or 6 of those, you should have a specific call to action. In our case, it is pick up the phone and call us. No cost, no obligation, just to chat about the possibility of creating a portrait for your family or portraits for your family that you will treasure for the rest of your lives as fine family heirlooms. So the power of the call to action is incredibly important, and you should be using that no matter what marketing means you're using, no matter what medium you're in. All right, next up is the deadline. You got to have a deadline in your marketing. Every piece or every marketing offer that you do, specific offer, has to have a deadline. That deadline can be a time deadline. Or it can be a limited supply deadline, a kind of scarcity kind of a thing. Or it can even be like bonuses that they get for that are only for a certain amount of time. But it's got to have a deadline, because if it doesn't, guess what? Photography is one of the #1 products in the world where people can easily say to themselves, I'll just do this. I'll do this later. We don't have to do this now. We'll do it later. And that is the killer that's going to kill not only your business, but they're not going to end up having these incredible portraits to enjoy for the rest of their lives. And every day that they don't have them, things can change, things can happen, and they don't have that incredible joy every single day. So make sure you've got a deadline in there. A PS, postscript, whenever possible or applicable. Typically, we're not doing PSs much anymore. This was really big in the sales letters or in the personal letters that you're sending through the mail. So whenever you're doing that, you want to do a PS. Sometimes we would do it in emails. That'll be done quite a bit in emails as well, because a lot of studies have been done over the years in multiple different mediums of marketing to show that the #1 thing that is looked at in any marketing message is typically the captions under photographs. That's typically #1. Tied up there with headlines. So it's kind of between the headline and the captions that are under a photograph, which in our case will be testimonials. But the #3 thing after those two things is the PS, the postscript, where it says, hey, PS, I forgot to tell you about this incredible thing that we do that makes us that our clients tell us is really special about what we do. So they might read the headline, the testimonial, go down to the PS, and if those things suck them in, then they're most likely going to read the rest of what you have to say there, okay? All right, so let's dive into headlines that sell. We have to start with this because this is what your client is going to start with when they see your message. even if it's in social media, and we will get to that. If you're thinking, yeah, but Todd, I can't, if I'm doing a lot of stuff on Facebook and I can't do a big headline at the top of my thing unless I'm doing an ad, and we're not talking doing ads here. We're talking about doing actual boosted posts or organic posts on Facebook. How do I do headlines? We'll get to that. We'll get to that and talk about that. But right now, let's use this as an example. Now, what you're seeing here, and Dad, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk a little bit about this in a moment, is a printed special report about children's photography. And now it can be done as a printed special report, or it can be done as a PDF that can be attached to an email, that can be sent to somebody. It can even, I wouldn't do this, but it could even be put up on your website as a PDF that they can download, but I wouldn't necessarily do that. But a lot of the copy that's in here can be used on your web page, especially when you're talking about children's photography, because it's all very emotionally driven. So Dad, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of talk about the headline here, why it's so important, and how it kind of influenced the crafting of the rest of this unique piece.
Yeah, again, the headline is crucial. So, how I will help you tell the story of your child through emotional, sensitive portraiture. 3 very important words for our business, okay? And then you have a subhead, and then you have a deer, and then you have, the body copy. But if that headline does not capture their attention, like Todd said, they'll never get to the rest of it. So that's why you want to have a double readership path and emotional words.
Yeah, and everything else that is in this marketing piece is jumping off from that. How I will help you tell the story of your child. Now let's talk about that for a second here. We're going to talk headlines a lot today because they are vital. And we're going to give you some more examples of them. But how that starts out, how I will help you. So let's talk about that. First of all, how to, how I will, how you can. Those are incredibly powerful aspects to headlines because that's what people want to learn. They realize that I'm going to discover something by reading this that is going to help me learn about this thing that I may want, that I might be interested in, whatever it is. And then how I will help you tell the story of your child. Okay, so we're going to help you tell the story of your child. Notice what we didn't say. We didn't say how I'm going to tell the story of your child. That feels more distant to me because as a parent, subconsciously, I would personally think, well, you don't know my child. How are you going to tell that story? So how I'm going to help you tell the story of your child. Every word matters. Make no mistake. Every single word has been carefully thought of. So that's why we say help you tell your story through emotional. That's a word you're going to hear a lot about today. You've already heard it. If you're doing a drinking game, take a drink. Every time we say emotional, non-alcoholic. There we go. All right. Through emotional, sensitive portraiture. Because we are appealing to what are called the warm fuzzies. We're appealing to people who are emotional beings, who are driven by their emotions, who care about their family more than anything else, whether it's for senior photography, children's photography, baby photography, family photography, wedding photography. All of those have one thing in common, and that is family is most important to the client. So if that's the case, then you've got to be talking in terms of things like this when you're crafting your headlines. Talk to them on an emotional level. And again, that headline magically does that. How I will help you to tell the story of your child through emotional, sensitive portraiture. Now, anyone that doesn't appeal to, they'll go away, and that's okay. We want to weed out the people that they're like, well, I just tell me how much it costs, tell me how much I get, and tell me how cheap it is. All right, we don't; those aren't the right clients for us, and believe me, we are not the right photographer for them. There are plenty.
And
of
how
other
fast you are. Tell me
how fast you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I want it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. If they want it tomorrow, there's plenty of places they can go. We are not that place. All right. So that's the power of that headline. And again, this will go in websites. I mean, imagine that headline on your website. How powerful that headline will be, especially on if you have multiple pages, one for each type of photography, on your children's photography page. That's going to pull them in. Don't make the mistake of thinking, but websites are such a digital format. There's such a technology. So I guess I shouldn't talk emotionally. I should talk technically. No, It doesn't, the delivery method doesn't matter. Okay. It doesn't matter how the life-saving drug gets in your body, as long as it gets in your body, right? I mean, you know, doctors will do it the best way, of course. They'll choose the best, but hey, you got to get it in there, and that's what this is about. The delivery method does not matter nearly as much as the message. Tom, anything you want to add about the importance of headlines here? We're going to talk about that more coming up here.
Yeah, you can think of it as fish, as you're out fishing and you put a worm on the hook and you throw it out there, and the fish that are going by, they're interested currently in worms. In this case, their family and photography go, hey, that looks good. I'm going to stop here because, you know, you've gone through the trouble of crafting this, but they're not going to read it if they don't stop. So this is one of those places where it gives them a second to pause. It's interesting and leads them into the rest of what we're going to talk about here.
Absolutely. Dad, anything you want to add about headlines here, or shall we move on to the next section here?
No, I'm good. I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's move on to this next one here. How to craft killer headlines. If you were wondering, how do you do this? Well, okay, it is a skill that can be learned. Let's say that first. You don't have to be born a brilliant headline writer. There's a couple of things that you just need to get into the mindset of in order to become fantastic at writing headlines that sell. And I want to clarify this for a moment. When we say sell, I don't want there to be any negative connotations to that. When we say sell, we don't mean trick people into doing stuff. We don't mean to talk about, well, I'm going to pressure someone to do something they don't want to do. That's not what selling is if you are a good, powerful, and ethical salesperson. A salesperson finds out what someone wants and helps them to get it. And that's what our headlines are going to do. So make no mistake, when we say headlines that sell, that's what we mean. Nothing negative in that. All right, so first rule here is spend about 1/4 to 1/2 the time you spent creating the rest of the campaign to crafting the headline. No joke. I mean, Dad, how many meetings have we spent over the years brainstorming the heck out of headline ideas, narrowing that down to about 5 or 6, running them by other people that we're working with and so forth. Which one do you like? And then taking those, testing 2 of them against each other to come up with the best headline.
That's right. Multiple times. And sometimes the results, the difference between the A headline and the B headline are amazing.
Yeah, they absolutely are. And they oftentimes would surprise us, wouldn't they? The one that we thought would do best maybe didn't do quite as well as the other one. So spend a lot of time on it because, again, it doesn't happen by accident. Put yourself in the position of your target client. Every moment you are crafting your marketing message, think of yourself not as you. Because what you want right now is you want to get a client. What you want right now is you want to deposit some money in the bank. Right? What you want to do right now is get paid to do what you love. That is not what your client wants. Your client doesn't give a crap about that, frankly, and nor should they. So if you're in your head when you're crafting your marketing, including your headlines, then you're going to craft something for you and not for your potential client. So make sure that you're thinking, well, how does my client feel? My perfect target market client. How does my target market client feel? Well, she's probably watching her children grow up and change and wants to stop time and is worried about their safety and blah, blah, blah. Okay, all of that should be going into how you're crafting your headlines. So make sure you put yourself into the mind of your target market. When in doubt, use how to. We did that with the last one. It wasn't how to in that case. It was how I will help you, right? But that's a variation on the how to. How to have a portrait of your family that will become the most valuable thing you own and will continue to be that for the next 20 to 30 years of your life. There you go. Okay, there's a headline, an emotional headline right off the top of my head that starts with how to. Really great stuff. I'm guessing, Tom, do you want to chime in about, do you do kind of how-to stuff or any headlines or beginnings to posts like that when you're doing Facebook stuff as well?
Yeah, because part of this too, and we may get more into this later, is that most of the marketing that we do is coming from you. So it's as if you're speaking to them personally. You're not saying, Thomas Morelli Photography will teach you how to. It's let me help you person to person. And people like to work with people whom they like and whom they are like. So the whole psychology is there behind the headline to let them know that you're there to walk them through this, as Chuck always put it, take them by the hand and walk them through this big scary studio, so to speak. And they find out it's not really scary, but the headline helps to open that door a little bit to start the conversation.
Yeah, it sure does. So yeah, use how to. It's very powerful because people want to feel like they're learning something or discovering something. Discovering is better. People don't typically want to learn how to do something. They want to discover how to save money, how to get the thing they want, whatever it is. So how to is great. Stay away from funny as a general rule. Now, I have to say as a general rule, because we're talking to somebody here who's a pretty darn good funny guy and uses comedy in a very specific way to build the rapport he has with his clients. So I will start on this for a moment, and then Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell me how I'm completely wrong here. So the reason I say don't be funny is because, boy, comedy is subjective. No two people find exactly the same things funny. No two people find most things the same, right? But when it comes to comedy, it's very specific. And the last thing you want to do is take a risk turning somebody off or offending them, or you think it's funny, but they don't find it funny. So if you're going to do this, you got to be really good at being funny or maybe even folksy a little bit to your target market. So we tend to stay clear. I don't think we really did. We maybe did one or two campaigns, Dad, over the years that had maybe a little bit of a funny moment or something. But for the most part, we're always going on the dramatic emotion to our clients. But Tom, let me turn it over to you here to talk about why maybe you might want to do funny, but only if you can do it the right way.
Yeah, and we're not talking about telling jokes. Like getting on and just saying some joke you heard at a bar. Not that way at all. Most people don't do that. You ever see people come out of a comedy club and they try to tell the joke that was funny in the comedy club, but when they tell it, really falls flat. Mine is more observational. I guess if I had to use a comedian, it would be like Jerry Seinfeld. I might, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I've never said this, but for example, sometimes I jokingly say, as I get older, when I'm shaving in the mirror, I look in the mirror and I wipe off the steam and I go, Dad? One of the foibles of getting older. I look more like my father.
And relatable. See, let's talk about that one.
Very handsome guy. Now, what I just said is an example of humor. Self-deprecation in a mild way is nice. Like, you ever look in the mirror and you see a little gray hair? Me too. It tells me my family's getting older. So it's things that are more relatable. You ever stub your toe in the middle of the night or whatever, but it's not a joke telling type of thing. It's more observational about their life. Everybody have trouble getting up this morning and getting to work. Me too. The coffee maker was broke. Whatever. Just a little storytelling is more gentle. So you're not going, hey, did you hear the one about that doesn't work.
Yeah, no, that's great. So important. Stay away from funny, but if you do funny, make sure that it is funny that in ways that will appeal and be relatable to your target market. Next up is it must contain an immediate benefit to the reader. We've already talked about that, so we can kind of skip past that one, but don't underestimate it. It's worth re-mentioning here because it's so important. Make sure there's an inherent benefit in that headline, that previous one, how I will help you to tell the story of. Immediate benefit there. Who doesn't want to tell the story of their child? Build a list of 20 to 40 headlines. I know that might sound like a lot, but oftentimes the ones you immediately come up with, you think, oh, that's gold. It's gold, Jerry. It's gold. I'm just going to stop there. But it's after you think about it and you really get deep into it that you come up with the headlines that you're like, oh, now that one is really, really good. So build a list of 20 to 40 of them, hone those down, and pick the ones you like the best. Pick maybe the top 10, and then you're going to start working with those to, maybe ask other people that you trust, what do they think of these headlines, and have them give their opinion. It's great to give those headlines to somebody that doesn't know what you've been working on. Hey, which of these headlines would get you to read what comes after it? And they have no idea what's going to be after it. And that's great because all we care about is that headline getting them to read on. And then, of course, test those headlines. do what's called an A/B test, an A/B split test, where you take two headlines, the rest of the body copy, the photographs, the design, the layout, everything, no matter what medium you're using, are all identical in both of these tests. The only thing that is different is that headline, or sometimes maybe even only one word in that headline is different. And then you test that. You split your list in half. If you want to do it really well, you take every other name, okay, and make that your split list. Test one to one, one to the other, and then whichever one works the best, you take that one and you roll it out to the rest of your big list. Very powerful, can be done online, offline. A/B testing has been a thing for well over 120 years. It's incredibly powerful, and all good marketers today still do A/B testing. And guess what? Almost all the mediums out there, I believe, Tom, you might know this. If you don't, that's okay. But can't you do some sort of A/B testing even, I think, with social media stuff now sometimes? I know with YouTube, you can do A/B testing of the headline or the title of your YouTube video now, which is really powerful. So that shows you that they understand the power of that. But do you know if you can do anything like that with social media right now?
I'm not sure. I use Facebook and Instagram a lot, but the only thing I'll do, because it's so inexpensive to use for the return on investment, that I'll run exactly the same thing, just change the headline and either run them consecutively or one after the other and compare them that way. I haven't seen if they have a feature that will rotate them in some way to let you keep track of that. Probably they do. Good idea, Todd.
Yeah. Well, and I believe Google Ads, when you do like Google AdSense and you do a Google ad that way, I believe they have a way to do A/B testing. Very powerful. And then you can tell it, hey, Google, once you get a sense of which one of these working better, send all the rest of the people that good one, that better one right there, which is the same thing I believe that YouTube is doing now as well. All right. So there you go. That is how you craft killer headlines. Let's move on to some samples of these headlines. These are great. These are some of our favorite headlines. The 7 things to watch out for when choosing a children's photographer. Oh, that's such a good one. It's such a good one, because that one there is a great example of, as a potential client, I'm thinking, well, there are 7 things I should be watching out for. I didn't know that. I got to know what these things are. I don't want to make a mistake here, right? So that fear of not having all of the information is a major thing when people are making a purchasing decision. So that is a great example of a headline there. And you could change that to family photographer, wedding photographer, whatever. The 11 shocking truths about senior photography and how they can ruin your senior portraits. Oh, now there's a big one. That one's great because graduating seniors, whether they will admit it or not, care a lot about how they look in that senior portrait. Man, do they care a lot. I don't care, Mom. I don't really care. Just whatever. And deep down, they're like, oh, man, I'd much rather look like Brad Pitt than look like... I don't want to say a name because I don't want to be rude to anybody. Okay, but
The Pitts.
right. There you go. So yeah, 11 shocking truths. Now that one, sometimes I go back and forth on that. Sometimes it feels a little hypey to me, a little bit over the top. But man, oh man, all you gotta do is go through YouTube sometime and watch the videos that are getting the most views. And most of the time, they have headlines that have that kind of action. The so-and-so got destroyed, or disastrous moment with such and such. Those are the ones that get the attention. So sometimes used sparingly, those kind of headlines can work very, very well. Dad, why don't you take this one? Because I know this is one of your absolute favorites.
Yeah. Again, it's just emotional, and I feel that it will appeal to my target market, which is females with families. They're warm fuzzies. They value photography. They will place a value on it and are willing to invest in it. So how to capture the love and happiness of your family in this moment and time and hold on to it forever. That's exactly what a warm, fuzzy female with children and a husband and a happy family and wants everything to just stay that way if it could, that will appeal to her.
It absolutely will. That's so great. And emotion, it gets you. It gets you. Target market will absolutely be driven by that. Your non-target market will go somewhere else. So it's weeding
Right.
out the people. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to talk to 100 people before you get the one that's going to want to hire you. They come to you already partially pre-sold. And
Yep.
that's the magic of good marketing. Why other photographers don't want you to read this, it could ruin their day. I want to talk about that one for a moment. I'm not a big fan of this kind of approach anymore. I was a bit more when I was getting started, but the more I have gone through the process of crafting marketing, the more I've realized I don't think you need to do this approach very often. I think you can do better with honey than you can with a stick or a carrot. I think you can do better with a carrot than you can with a stick a lot of the time. I'd rather use that previous one of the positive that they're going to get from this rather than the negative of other photographers don't want you to know this. But test it. You don't know until you test it. So that's why I put this on here. I want to show you examples of all the different kinds of approaches that you can take here. Tom and Dad, just very quickly, do you agree with what I just said? How do you feel about that last headline, why other photographers don't want you to read this? Tom?
Yeah, gosh, I probably used that 20 years ago, and I did get a little pushback from a few of my local photography friends. And I said, "Did you read it?" And they said, "Well, yeah, it's true," because it posted things that they didn't do that I was doing for their clients. They just didn't like that I poked the bear a little bit. So yeah, I didn't use that a lot. I've used it years ago, but the other ones are, again, I like the honey covered carrots. That's delicious.
Honey covered carrots. There we go.
You'll come up with a new recipe, but yeah, I like the other ones. Prefer those. They're more positive, in my opinion.
All right, Dad, how about you?
I agree with you, Todd. I'm exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. We've tried so many things over the years,
Oh.
and we found the things that we like too. You do kind of have to take the marketing approach that you believe in as well, as long as it works. So here are a few additional samples of headlines. Don't choose a family photographer until you read this special report. 7 myths and misconceptions about picking the right family photographer. Fantastic headline example for a special report that you would send out to your clients, potentially through either the mail or through an email as a PDF, something like that. Because again, it's that idea of people wanting to know what they need to know. And 7 myths and misconceptions. So notice this one isn't the 7 things you must know. It's the 7 myths and misconceptions about picking the right family photographer. And that's a very unique approach to this kind of a thing, because it's saying that there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there. And hey, in the day and age that we are making this video, and I don't think this is going to change anytime soon, misinformation's a thing, right? People are afraid of misinformation. They want to know they're getting the right information. And as AI becomes more and more of a thing, and as we're working the bugs out of AI, there's going to be a lot of misinformation, sometimes intentionally and sometimes very unintentionally. That's going to be spread out there as that becomes more of a thing. So this really capitalizes and I don't want to say capitalizes, but really touches on that part of somebody, because the last thing they want to do is make a mistake or have a myth or misconception that influences their decision when it comes to something having to do with their family. And here is a classic. Dad, I'm going to turn this one over to you. I remember, I don't know, it had to have been 35, 40 years ago when I first heard this headline. I think it might have been at a Dan Kennedy event at some point or something. But yeah, why don't you talk about this one real quick?
Yeah, this comes from a piano lessons company that way back in the day said they laughed when I sat down at the piano, but they're not laughing anymore. And what that implied was that I was able to use this course to learn how to play the piano and play it well. And that's kind of where it comes. So now, over the decades, there's been all kinds of different adjustments and changes to that approach, and it's very good. It's a good approach.
Yeah, and countless industries have utilized that same approach. But what I like about this is they laughed at me when I told them I would bring tears to people's eyes with my photography, but they aren't laughing anymore. Now, we snuck a really cool thing in there that we're going to talk about. I think we talk about later, but if we don't, I'm going to bring it right up here real quick. And that is our guarantee. Okay, they laughed at me when I told them I would bring tears to people's eyes, because when we talk about our guarantee in our marketing, it is that if you don't cry tears of joy when you see these photographs for the first time, I will do whatever it takes to thrill you, and if I can't, then I will give you your money back. So it's that crying tears of joy is a big thing. Bring tears to people's eyes, and that's what that is really. So I like that we kind of, to use a Disney term, a Walt Disney term, we kind of plussed that.
Yeah.
We kind of plussed that headline by also throwing in that tears of joy and that kind of guarantee aspect of it as well. All right. Fantastic. More headlines that sell. We're going to talk about tweaking every word because it makes a difference, makes a massive difference. So first of all, choosing a wedding photographer, learn what to look for and what to avoid. Choosing a wedding photographer. So that one immediately shows that this is going to appeal to the reader if they're at all thinking about having a wedding photography done. This is a huge decision for them. So they know it appeals to them and applies to them. And then learn what to look for and what to avoid. Remember, we talked earlier about how important it is to be sure to have a benefit built into that headline. And right there is that. And again, you can apply it to other types of photography as well. Works really well for weddings, though, because that is something every person who's getting photographed, or every person who's having a wedding is worried about right there. Choosing a wedding photographer. Discover what to look for and what to avoid. So now notice I changed one word. That's the same headline with one word changed, the one in red. Change the word learn to discover. I love that. I love that because, again, people typically don't want to learn something, but they want to discover something because by discovering something, they think they might be missing out if they don't know it. But I don't want to learn something. Well, I got to go to school. I stopped going to school a long time ago, and I don't miss it. You know, so discover. That's really important. Here's another great example of changing maybe a word or so and how it can really change the effectiveness of the marketing. 7 mistakes most people make when choosing a family photographer. This could save a lot of time and money. All right, anyone watching this, before I go to the next screen here, I want you to think to yourself, what word would I maybe change in that to make it more effective? What one word might I change? Well, it's the word in red. Changing the word could to the word will. 7 mistakes most people make when choosing a family photographer. This will save you a lot of time and money. Could, well, yeah, could or could not. Will, well, I got to know what this is, right? Very important. Why you should hire me to be your photographer? Because I need the work. Okay, I just put that one on there. See, funny is subjective.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. You know, I did that one for Tom because I don't think
you get an A for that one. Chuck, if I could throw this in before we change the slide.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have we been talking about curious unknowns?
Oh,
Does
we have
that
not
fall
yet.
in the category of the 7 mistake? People go, I wonder what that is.
Right.
And that will cause people to stop, read it. And as they go through the copy, they see all those calls to action, call you to find out more because you're solving that question for them. What is this all about? And that's very powerful, I found.
Very
Yes.
powerful. Yeah, the curious unknown. A curious unknown is, yeah, something, the 7 missing mistakes or the 9 things to ask a photographer before you hire them. You know, I'm curious because that's unknown. That's why we call it a curious unknown. Great point there, Tom. Absolutely. All right. I think that wraps up our talk of headlines, which is a big part of this. But now let's show some examples of headlines and what we call subheadlines throughout the marketing here with what we call our double readership path. So a double readership path is basically like we talked about at the beginning. Some people will read all of your marketing and notice this. Now, you might be thinking, my goodness, there's a lot of words in that marketing. Yeah. What are you guys doing? Everything I see, all the templates that are out there, all that stuff, I mean, they're just photograph after photo. It's just photographs. And then a phone number, you know? And then, well, if you're doing that and you're not getting very many clients, maybe you know why now. Because this is what's required. Only about 50% of the reason someone is going to hire you to be their photographer is because of your work, the quality of your photography. That's only 50%. The other 50% or sometimes more is Who are you as a person? Do they like you? Do they trust you? What sets you apart from other photographers? Why should they choose you instead of their Uncle John, who just got a 3,000 megapixel camera that can photograph better than the Hubble Space Telescope, or I should say the John Webb telescope now, I guess.
Yeah.
Is it John Webb? It is John Webb, right?
Yeah.
No.
Jack Webb?
Jack
Steve Webb? Bob Webb? Spider Webb? I don't know. Who is it? I can't remember. Okay, the Webb
come on.
telescope, whatever it is. Yeah, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank here. It's not John Webb, though. Oh, well.
It's not James, is it?
James.
James.
James
I still
Webb.
like, I still like
Took
Spider
the guy
Webb better.
from Maine to get that one.
The guy from Maine gets that one.
The very first NASA administrator way back.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. That's where that came from. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, why should they choose you instead of their uncle who just got this incredible camera? And that's where the words become so important. And for the skimmers, we want to make sure that if they just read the things that pop out of the page, i.e. those small headlines, that they get enough of the story to be potentially ready to either take the call to action that you give them or go back and read every word you said. So let's take a close-up look at this here. The first subhead there on the left side of the page near the top says, now, oh, that's hard for me to read. Can you guys, Dad, I'm going to turn this over to you because it's really small on my screen because I'm recording. So why don't you take this and talk about those subheads?
Yeah, the main thing is the subheads are important points. They're the big points that you want to make.
Right.
And then you can have a little more detail in the paragraph.
Right. So talk about the specific headlines here.
Yeah, for example, let's just take a look at the words real quickly here. Now fast forward 2.5 years, a tragedy happened and Sharon's life was never the same. Now, does that not get you to go, oh, I wonder what that was? But if you're in a hurry, you might just skip down to the next one. Fortunately, everyone got out of the house all right. Thank goodness for smoke alarms. But what happened on the way out may startle you. See how these are basically curious unknowns and you're interested in it, but we're not even reading the little teeny words. We're just skimming.
Right.
We're one of those skimming people. And you can see, so then you say,
yeah, but I want to clarify something right now. This is not the first page of this special report. So there's other stuff before this, but we wanted to show you some stuff in the middle of it as well. Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah. So then we glanced at the scanner glances down and passing family heirlooms and meaningful trinkets collected over lifetimes. What she chose to clutch to her heart and rescue from the fire makes me so proud I could just burst. See, this is a true story. This really happened. All right. But that you see how emotional this is, and it really you want to know more details. And that's what is so powerful about that double readership path. The skimmer will start out skimming quickly. I'm in a hurry. I'm on my way to the trash can right now, or on my way to another website or whatever. But this kind of gets that person, and that's the person that we would like to work with. 5 myths, mistakes, and misconceptions about having a family portrait created, the stuff 99% of all people in the world don't know. So there are these 5 major myths and mistakes that you really would want to know if you're thinking about having, and whenever I talk about this, I go back to the last class that Paul Linwood Giddings ever taught at Winona School of Professional Photography in 1972, and I was in that class. Luckily for me, I attended that class, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Let's say you're buying you're writing to someone who's thinking about buying a car, and you have all these words in there. What do you care? And people aren't going to care, and they're just going to throw it away." I'll never forget him saying this way back then. And he said, but if you're looking for a car, if you're actually seriously thinking about getting another car, you're going to read every word. See, it's a matter of writing for the reader that you want to work with. And that's what we're doing. Yes, there are a lot of words here, but we're giving them a double readership path. But this is very important stuff. I think you get the idea.
Absolutely. So here's a couple more. Why don't you take a look at these? So this is a lift card here, or a postcard. So this can be used for sending through the mail as a postcard to potential clients, to your VIPs, your very important patrons. people that you have photographed before and would like to give them the opportunity to be photographed again as their family changes. It can also be used on as lift cards on your exhibits like we talked about before. So Dad, are you able to read a couple of those subheads there? I know they're pretty
Sure.
small.
But just keep in mind, these are all on the online vault, and you as a member have total access to everything on the online vault. And you can just, for example, type in lift cards, and you'll pull them right up and you'll be able to see every single word, including the smaller words. But the first subhead says, we can stop the clock. Memories are the most valuable thing we own. And then we go on to talk about that. Can you relate to this at all? I wake up every morning and wonder, ... Okay. So again, even on a lift card, we have a double readership path. Another one here, question, just suppose someone were to create the perfect portrait of your child, one where your child looked better than ever, happier than ever, a portrait that meant the world to you. What would that be worth? See, we're not the least expensive photographer in town is basically kind of what we're alluding to here. All right, and the one in the middle at the top, don't make the decision as to who will photograph your child until you call my free recorded hotline. And this is very, you're giving them multiple means of doing something if they don't want to pick up the phone and call you and talk to you in person quite yet. For your friend, there are things you want to ask. There are things you'll want to ask the photographers that you're thinking of working with. Okay, so a double readership path with meaningful main points, and then the details are in the smaller things, the smaller words. Very crucial. I don't have much time. That's what it's talking about on the very top paragraph. And then it says, well, I've decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I'm going to add 5 more sessions to my already booked solid schedule. And they go, okay, so he's really busy. And that's what's a very critical point. You want to come from a position of being extraordinarily busy. And Tom always does that very well as well. And then the next one down says, and I'll give you 50% off the creation of the images, plus 10% off the portraits, plus a free frame valued at up to $1,000. Okay, you're getting the meat of this report or sales letter by just skimming and seeing the basic double reader, the subheads.
Yep, absolutely. All right. And then there are more examples of that here, examples of double readership path and heads, subheads. I'm not going to read all of these, but here you can at least see those. More examples of it going throughout various special reports. Double readership path, more subheads, all of them very different in tone. You can read those for yourself on the screen there. You can pause this video as much as you like to be able to read those. Or again, if you're a member of the online vault, you can go ahead and get all of these. I believe are available on the online vault for you to download. So you can have all the copy right there at your fingertips. There's a few more examples right there. Powerful stuff. Don't underestimate how important it is to have a powerful double readership path. Now, Tom, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about how to kind of do a double readership path and when to do it in social media. So I gave 2 examples here. The one on the left is kind of an example that doesn't really have a double readership path, because in social media, you really kind of can't do a double readership path easily. You might have some other ideas of how to do it, Tom, but what I like is you kind of forced a double readership path on the one in the right by building some subheads, if you will, in handwriting into the image itself that you included on that particular Facebook post. So why don't you talk about that a little bit, if you would?
Right. In that, first, the one on the left is really strictly conversational. I love pointing that out, that it's from me. It's not saying, Morelli Studio or Thomas Morelli Photography is doing senior portraits, blah, blah, blah. You can read that at your leisure. But it leads into the fear of missing out. I can only do this many. It sort of goes back to the last slide we did. With the baby plan one, indeed, the first thing they see usually is the largest. So the headline is almost in the photograph itself, which is done in Photoshop. So that's there. That's my own font, a handwriting font. And then they can jump up to the top if they want to say, well, what's this about? I need more details. And that's where you get a little bit of the information and some of the calls to action, and only 7 sessions, all the things that go into what we talk about. So yeah, I like using that photograph. We don't normally, I mean, it's normally you don't write on a photograph. In this case, there's my little bit of humor. Baby's first iPhone. Parents get it, especially the newer generation parents that have iPhones, but they love the old school look of the iPhone that we use in some of these photographs. The babies pick those up and they have no idea what that is now.
It's funny, isn't
We
it?
don't have one of these at home. What's this thing?
Yeah. What is
But I still like to use it because people see it real retro. But anyway, that's the point of that. It tells them right away, this is how much it is, 3 callers only. Wow, I better call right now. And it gets the job done without even reading the copy yet.
Yeah, it sure does. They're very powerful. Now, I do have a question for you, Tom. We can't take a lot of time on this because I'm watching the clock. But have you ever tried doing that with a boosted post, and were you able to get away with it? Because I know on boosted posts, a lot of times they will not let you boost it if it has too much type, if it has too much copy in the image.
They are fickle about that. They being Facebook, whoever those meta people in the back room eating sub sandwiches and making decisions that affect my life. But so all I could say is test and try. I've had some times where I've had multiple images with some copy and they said your ad was not approved. This one, similar to this always been approved for whatever reason, but your results may vary, but that's why you A/B test. You come up with a few different permutations. The copy is still the same. They don't kick it out for the copy. It's really just the image, and if it has writing on it.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, it's a great idea. What a great way to get a double readership path through there, especially for your organic posts on social media. All right. Some rules and tips to help craft compelling campaigns. And this is the body copy, or what would basically be the rest of the type that is not the headline or the double readership path in your marketing. Huge for websites. So pay attention to this for your website. Pay attention to it for your social media. Pay attention to it for your direct. Pay attention to it for everything. This is so important. But here are some guidelines and rules for you. Font type and size. Keep it simple. Keep it readable. Those are the number one and number 2 thing. It's got to be readable. If it's not readable, then it's already failed. So if it's between making it pretty and making it readable, make it readable every single time. Long copy versus short copy. That means, should it be really short and concise, or should longer copy be used? And boy, have we tested this a lot over the years. And what we have discovered is that long copy with something like photography, like high-end photography, that is not a small investment. They're not spending $10 or investing $30. They're investing hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in this. That long copy almost will always outsell short copy if you use the double readership path for the scanners, because they want more information. They really need to connect with you before they're going to make that decision. So whenever possible, use longer copy, and that includes in social media sometimes. Social media, you don't have a lot of space some of the times, but making a longer post where they sometimes have to click on see more or whatever it is to read the rest of the post, that's okay, as long as the stuff that's at that beginning is super compelling and gets them to want to read more. Don't be boring. Just don't be boring. If you're reading through the thing and you're thinking like your potential client and you go, well, that you kind of lost me there. Now my mind is a little bit drifting. Then ask yourself whether that should actually still be in there, or can you cut it out? Talk in terms of benefits to the client. Absolutely. Throughout your copy, if you read the stuff that we've shown on the previous slides, almost every single word in some way is talking in terms of a benefit to the client. Be emotional. We've talked about that a lot. There you go. Drinking game. Take a drink, take a sip. We talked emotional again. There we go. Be emotional in your copy. Again, you go back and read those words. They're all emotional, both in the headlines, in the subheads, and now in the body copy as well. Tell stories. This is such an important one. There's a phrase that we use in marketing all the time, which is facts tell while stories sell. Facts only tell while stories actually sell. And so you want to be telling stories, but they've got to be true stories. Don't make them up, but tell true stories about, hey, I photographed this family and here's why they loved it so much. Or this family put this off and then they regretted it because of this and they called me and told, tell these stories in your marketing, because that's what we are. We are storytellers as human beings, certainly as photographers. Of course, reveal your unique factors. Talk about your unique factors. You should have a list of between 10 and 20 unique factors that you can call upon at any time when you're crafting your marketing. Again, the special report stuff that we just showed you was laden full of important unique factors. Don't use perfect grammar. This is not an English exam. You're not learning to write the next great novel here. What we're doing is we're trying to communicate to other people, most of whom do not have master's degrees in sentence structure. We talk. We want to make it conversational. And conversational, I'm teaching a class right now to some high school students on how to write plays. And we just got done talking about how to craft dialogue that sounds real. And I told them, much to their teacher's dismay, to forget everything they ever learned about writing proper sentences, because that's not how we talk. We talk in sentence fragments sometimes. We talk with dots, with ellipses. We change our pattern. We change our train of thought, stuff like that. It's okay to do that as long as it's not confusing. Don't overuse exclamation points. See what I did there?
I get it.
I overused
it.
You get it? Okay, good. All right, wanted to make sure that came across. And then flow. Make it natural. Make it natural. Just make it flow. Sometimes you have to move some things around to make it make more sense or to have a good flow. Flow is something very ethereal. It's something nondescript, but you'll get it as you're reading it. As you're having other people read it, they'll go, I'm just confused, or it just didn't flow. Then that means you got to do a little bit more work on it before it's going to be really, really powerful. All right, Dad, I'm going to turn it over to you to very quickly talk about testimonials. We already talked about what they are and why they're important, but why don't you give us a few key points on getting them to be used correctly?
Yeah, the first thing is you just have to set a rule for yourself that you're not going to show a photograph, whether it's social media, whatever you're using, without a testimonial. And I'm not going to use a testimonial without a photograph, which is obvious because we're photographers, duh. But that you just make that a rule. From now on, I will not do that. If I have a photograph that I'm using in any kind of a campaign, marketing piece, media, wherever, I'm going to show the photograph with the testimonial and the testimonial with the photograph. And you can't overuse these puppies. What you want to do is you want to make it's overwhelming argument that you must be great to work with. Because how you could never have this many fantastic testimonials. So this guy or gal must be really, really good. And that's why, of course, you use the first name and the last name and their city and the state, so that if someone wanted to, they could go to work and they could find the phone number for that person and call them up and say, or email them and say, did you really say that about Charles Lewis or about Tom Morelli? You want them to be convinced that these are real. Never just put the first letter of the first name and then no.
And I want to be really clear here. That is not why we do that. We don't do it so that people can call up people and ask them if they really said it. I want to be super clear about that. The fact that they can think in their mind, well, if I wanted to, I guess I could call them. They don't do it because but they know that they could, so it gives it credibility. That's the important thing there.
They have to be believable. And then, of course, one of the greatest things to do is that you can have each testimonial bring up one of your unique factors that separates you from all the other photographers in the area, without never saying anything bad about another photographer. But what is it unique about you? We've talked about those unique factors, like your guarantee and that you meet people in person before you photograph them, things like that are unique to you. But then the testimonial, one of the reasons that I decided to hire you was your incredible guarantee. And I'm so glad I did, because I had no idea I was going to love these photographs so much, and I do. But what if I hadn't? I know that you would have stood behind your work and you would have given me my money back. See, you're using the unique factors. And then, of course, ask for the testimonials. You're not going to get them. I mean, yes, once in a while, we all have had someone write you a nice note or a nice email saying wonderful things, because that's just kind of the kind of person they are. But most of the time, people won't do it. So you have to ask for them.
Fantastic. Thank you for those key points. Testimonials are vital. Tom, I'm going to turn this one over to you to talk about the guarantee and its place in the marketing and some key points here. So here you go.
You bet. And talk about something that will separate you from the rest of the pack, because few photographers do this. Very few. Even now, if you
Yep.
don't have one, get one. And we're going to show you some great examples of what you can do. But it has booked me far more sessions and far more weddings. I did over 1,000 weddings, retired from those a couple of years ago just because I don't have to. But people would just be blown away by the guarantees. It takes all the risk off the potential client. This risk reversal, especially with a wedding, there's quite a good investment in a wedding, multiple thousands of dollars if you're charging proper fees. But also with portrait photography, family sessions can get into the multiple thousands of dollars, even 4 or 5 figures. If they're going to do that, you have to reverse the risk for them so that they know absolutely you stand behind what you're offering. And if not, you'll make it right. And if you can't make it right, you'll refund their money in full, no questions asked. Don't be afraid of it. Shout it from the rooftops, both online and offline. And what that means is it's in everything that I do, whether it's online, social media, or print, whatever it is, snail mail, lift cards, and even on a telephone. We talk about that because it is unusual. People don't hear it very much from photographers. Most photographers that I've talked to about this will say, I don't dare to do that. And I'm like, well, you should hone your skills then and work on your people skills as well as your photography skills, build rapport. People will trust you. Nobody's going to take advantage of you if you do what you're supposed to do for them. And if you're not going to, maybe you should learn how before you ask for their investment. Make sure you're good at it. The wording, if you're not thrilled with your photographs, not just satisfied, that's a big one too. You ever hear, oh, you'll be so satisfied. Everybody says that. Your photograph's not just satisfied. We'll do whatever is necessary to make sure you are thrilled or you get all of your money back. I've actually had over the years, when I meet with clients, prospects about weddings, had other photographers call and go, I got to ask, just between you and I, did you really say that? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, how in the world? And I tell them I book more weddings that way. I really did. People would stop and say, we're going to see a couple other people, but that's so powerful that we want to book with you right now. You can check out the online vault for a complete program on guarantees for photographers, and I guarantee you'll love it.
Yes.
Nicely done. I like that. I like that. All right. The offer. What makes an irresistible offer? Oh, this is so important. First of all, discounts. Now, again, we talked about that earlier. I don't think we have to spend much more time on it here, but find ways to give people a realistic but compelling discount. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. It doesn't have to be insane, but people do like to save money. So that helps to make an irresistible offer. Also, bonus gifts, what we call linked and non-linked bonus gifts. What that means is photographs or bonus gifts that might be linked to the photography, i.e., we don't recommend this, but you could try it if you wanted to. But, if you purchase this portrait, you'll get a complimentary frame for that photograph. We don't recommend that because we have a reason why we don't do that, and there's more information on the online vault about that. But that would be an example of a linked gift. But non-linked gifts are just, hey, if you're one of the first 5 families to be photographed, you're going to get dinner for 4 or a dinner for your whole family at such and such, 4-star restaurant here in town or whatever it is. Okay, because that's not linked to the photographs, but still very valuable. Scarcity. Talking about, hey, I literally only have 7 slots available in the month of November, still open to photograph families for this offer. Once those are gone, they are gone. Don't make it up. Go through and find out how many of these can I do, how many am I willing to do, whatever it is. But that scarcity is really important. No free photographs. Never, ever give away photographs for free under any circumstances. There's a circumstance that some people mistakenly think is giving away free photographs, and that's when we do a joint venture with another business where they are giving a complimentary portrait to their clients. They're not photographers. They're the examples of that endorsed mailing we talked about earlier, but like a dental place that we'll give you, once you've had your braces taken off, an orthodontist, you've had your braces taken off, we're going to give you a complimentary portrait from Charles Lewis. We're going to commission him to create a complimentary portrait for you of your new smile after you've gotten these off. That's not the same as a free photograph. That's that's that business organizing to have that photograph for you as a complimentary gift from them. That's very different. But the reason you don't want to give away photographs for free is it cheapens your product. We don't ever want it to seem like these photographs are not valuable. And if you give any of them away for free, it sends that message that they're not valuable. What does that say? Can't read. Oh, have. Okay, good. Yeah. Have multiple calls to action and be clear on what they should do next. Don't just say it once. Pick up the phone and call me. You don't just say it once, but also give them, multiple means. Hey, if they're not ready to do that, or you can, go to my webpage here, or you can send me an email here. But we always want to go for the phone call first because that's the most valuable contact we will have, and we have the best chance of converting them into a client. Talk about the passing of time. It's huge. Why do I put that here in the offer? Because part of the job of the offer is to let them know why they need to do this now. Why now, and don't put this off. So talking about the passage of time is huge. And then remember this is important. Keep this in the forefront of your mind from now until the end of time. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. This is such an important point of everything we do. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Make sure that this is also in your offer. The way that can be represented in your offer is that, I wish I could offer this to more people because I believe in this so much, but unfortunately for many people, we are booked very solid. So this is all we can do. This is the only time we have. And that's letting them know you care, and as long as that's legit, then you're being truthful. That is incredibly powerful. So that's what helps to make it an irresistible offer. Next up is means of response. What options should you or should you not give them to contact you, and why? Number one is the phone. That is an absolute yes. That should be your number one. And yes, don't make any mistake. I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, everybody only just wants to text." Well, not your target market clients. No. They might start out with a text, but believe me, they're going to want to talk to you on the phone to get the best information they possibly can to help them make this decision, because it's not a small decision. Email. Yes, if we can't get them on the phone, I'll start with them on email, and then our emails will be designed to get them to call us on the phone so that we can convert them to the phone. Website, absolutely. You can use I don't use a contact form. I don't think a contact form is useful. It means nothing on a website, but giving them the opportunity to request this special report, the 7 things to ask your photographer before you hire them to do your family portraits, that's a great thing because they want that. Now you've got their name, their address, their email address, and possibly their phone number, so you can do some follow-ups. Text messages, no, don't encourage them to text message you. You're just going to spend all the time trying to get them off the text messages, and they're just not going to be qualified. So I would not bother with that. Social media, yes, get them to like your social media, absolutely. But I would only do that after I have gone for the phone number, the email, those 2 things there. Then I might say, hey, don't forget to check out my, you want to see the photographs from the family I photographed last week, and what they had to say about it. Go to my Facebook page here to check that out. But then I would argue, why didn't you just put that on your webpage right there and then said, why don't you give me a call so you can have portraits like this done too? You can see how important that is to do this the right way. Because you don't want them doing anything other than picking up the phone whenever possible. Fill out a form. I already talked about that. Only if you're going to give them a compelling reason to fill it out. Don't just say, here's my contact form, fill it out. So those are kind of the means of response. Cosmetics of marketing. What should it look and feel like? Dad, I'll turn this one over to you to talk about very, very quickly because we are watching the time. The look of the marketing is not nearly as important as what you say. It's that simple. But the cosmetics of the marketing are not completely unimportant, so let's talk about those here. Go ahead, Dad.
Yeah, I mean, how it looks is important to you and to your mom when she looks at your marketing pieces, but that's all really. I mean, you don't want it to be unattractive, but spend your time on the words. The words are what matter so much, and all the things we've talked about today. Okay, you're going to have a font which is easy to read, not so fancy and scrolly and scripty. No. And the size has to be large enough to where it's easily readable. You want the colors to not distract from the images that you're showing them. No, we do not suggest reverse type. That's where you have black background and the words on it are white or light colored. It's harder to read. It's very trying for the eyes. It tires the eyes out very quickly. So we don't recommend that. Leave some white space around it. That's not a problem at all. It gives it a little feeling of nice space, okay? But ugly versus pretty, there's a place for both of them, but frankly, you want it to be as attractive as you possibly can with having the words that you need. Don't cut out the words because there's too many words. No, 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 no. That you will just not get any response at all.
Absolutely. All right. So there's the cosmetics. Again, make it easy to read. That's the big thing. I like to not use smaller than the very smallest I will go is 10-point type. I usually won't go below 12. 12-point type in the marketing. On printed marketing. On a web page is different because you don't know but you see, you don't know if they're looking at it on a small screen, on a big screen. So 10-point type at the absolute smallest. 12-point type is what I aim for. And then for headlines, I will usually go for somewhere between 18 and 24 point. And for subheads, I'll usually go for somewhere between 14 and 18-point type. So that's kind of our, it varies with fonts. But then fonts, I'm usually using Times New Roman, Helvetica, Avant-Garde. The simple ones, the ones that are simple because they're readable. All right, last up here, how to create, and then Dad and Tom, I'm going to give you just 30 seconds each to do a wrap up here. So go ahead and start thinking about what you want to say as your final thoughts here. We're going to go through a step-by-step checklist, how to create your marketing from A to Z. Here we go. All right, number 1. Make sure you have, oh man, that is really hard for me to read. Dad, I'm going to let you read those.
That's small type, Todd.
Because
that's smaller than 12.
I think I broke my rule there. Yeah, now I see why. That's incredibly small for me. Dad, are you able to read that a little bit better than I can?
Sure. Make sure that you have specs if being sent through mail. So don't try sending something snail mail without checking with the post office of what you're thinking of doing to make sure that you meet their requirements, or you could get a real unpleasant surprise with how much postage you're going to need to put on it.
Chuck, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'll make this really quick. Years and years ago, before I learned this, I had an 8.5 by 11 postcard, 2-sided for high school seniors. I went to the post office and I went to the window, the way that pushes out, you're outside. And I said, I just wanted to see if this was legal size. And the guy says, no, you're gonna have to fold it in half. And I said, fold it in half? I can't. And we argued for a minute. He goes, I can't waste my time. Come inside. So I went inside. I said, is this too big? I have to fold it in half? He goes, no. To send it to the window for me to look at it, you're going to have to fold it in half. Okay, so talk about communication. So yes, get your specs, but go inside the post office and give the guy a break.
That's Thanks. A great story, Tom.
Love
Thanks. Come up with the offer. Obviously, we've already talked about that. Go back and review things that we've already talked about.
Yeah,
today.
this is just the checklist. So
yeah,
this
decide
is
on
in the order of what you should be doing.
Yep. And once you've got an offer, you're going to make a deadline, decide on what you want the deadline to be. Don't have it be too far in advance. Write the first draft of your body copy, because we always edit after we do that. Create a double readership path for sure. Put in testimonials. Absolutely. Make sure that you have multiple calls to action throughout the entire piece or web page or whatever it is we're talking about. Make sure your guarantee is mentioned at least 2 times, depending on the length of the marketing campaign. Rewrite copy, body copy, and double readership path. Come up with a headline ideas. Choose headline or multiples to test. And somewhere in here, you've got to please have somebody else read it. Never send anything to anybody until you've had someone you know and love and trust read it, and make sure that there are no stupid mistakes or that you're saying something that could be misunderstood. Choose the headline or multiples to test. We said that. Write a PS if it's applicable. I recommend always having a PS and always having a salutation. Dear Susie, and then at the end, very truly, Charles Lewis.
However, that won't apply for some market. It won't apply on your website. It's not going to apply on lift cards. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it will apply on email. And then, of course, have a PS. Okay. Have someone oh, there it is right there. Have someone proofread it, spelling, and to make sure the offer is clear as a bell, because sometimes what you do is you put together an offer, you think it's really great, and you give it to someone who hasn't spent the last 3 days working on this thing, and they don't understand the offer at all. That's very important.
It sure is. All right, so there is your step-by-step checklist. We covered a lot of stuff today, and we made it, gentlemen. We made it. We're still alive. We're still cranking. But you can see, and this is kind of still scratching the surface. I mean, we covered an awful lot here. We could have taken any segment of this and made that a 4-hour program, right? But you get the idea here, and just remember, the thing to keep in mind is be emotional. Talk on an emotional level, build that rapport, and always think in terms of your target market. All right, gentlemen, we're going to wrap up here. I'm going to give each of you an opportunity to say something before we wrap up, about 30 seconds each. So, Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you, and then Dad, you can wrap us up. And what I will say is thank you for watching this video. Take action now on what you discovered here. It's not enough to have just watched it. Make sure you take some action right away. Tom?
I have a very good friend of mine in town who owns a large marketing agency. They work with big companies like LL Bean here in Maine. What you're looking at, this slide right here, that you would pay thousands to learn from this guy. He charges tens of thousands of dollars to these companies, and he and I talk about it, and he says to me, do you want to work for me? You know more than I do, because we talk about all these things. And I've learned this, of course, from Chuck and Todd over the years. This is the lifeblood of my business. My photographs need to be as good as they can be, but they don't matter if nobody knows I exist and nobody has a reason. Every day I get up, the last thing I say, you should, as a photographer, I get up every day and wonder, why should people call me and how can I get them to call me? All right, that's the first thing. Rather than how am I going to photograph somebody, why should they call me? And find out how, and you just saw how. So take this and use it, and we're here to help you.
You bet. All right, Dad.
Well, it was a pleasure to be chatting with you today, and I hope we've been helpful. But remember, successful photographers force themselves to discover the things that the failures don't want to discover. And I know you didn't go into this business to be a marketing person, but the bottom line is you have to become a marketing genius. You have to love this and eat, drink, and sleep it in order to build a successful business that will actually earn you the living you deserve for the beautiful work that you do. Great to have you here. I hope it was helpful. We'll talk to you again sometime soon, I hope.
You got it. Thanks, everyone. Take care and take action.
Right on. Bye-bye.